Welcome to the Sip and Say It podcast with your host, Carlos, a.k.a. Los, a podcast that promises to deliver a raw and unfiltered experience as we dive into the one-on-one conversations about a wide array of topics. We're inviting listeners to engage in candid discussions, personal stories, and diverse perspectives. Say what's on your minds. Let's create an open space for honest dialogue. As a village, let's immerse ourselves on trending issues, personal anecdotes, thought-provoking themes. Nothing is off limits. Tune in and become part of the conversations. Let's sip and say it together.
Welcome, folks. Welcome back to Sip and Say It, right? Sip and Say It. I'm sitting here enjoying a nice cup of coffee. And I took a moment to try to reflect a little bit back to episode one of mental health. I had that opportunity to chat for a couple minutes with Kev and Al, and it kind of resonated a little bit with me. And on top of that, I have my email where gotten several emails of just trying to follow up with some of that stuff, right? It's important to continue to talk about mental health and what we go through every day, right? We all go through different things, and we react and treat it in different ways, right? So, ideally, it's a great thing to just bring awareness to the mental health and behavioral crisis that we see and or we're exposed to, whether through our profession, whether through friends, whether through family, and even more importantly, ourselves, right? So statistically, right? So, when you do deep dives into the mental health side of the house, right, and trying to figure this out, right, and get some good valuable insights um, on the impact of mental health and statistically, they say between 1 to 5 adults experience mental health illness, and any time during the year, right? And that kind of equates to around 20% of the population when you really think about it, right? And then you try to sit there and think to yourself, all right, what are those disorders? What are those disorders that people are kind of going through? And some of the most common health disorders, mental health disorders, include anxiety, um, just major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder. I mean, I'm just kind of throwing some things out there. I'm sure there's other situations, when people kind of going into this deep depression for whatever the reason, relationships, work, dealing with children. I mean, women after birth, men with the pressures of their career and balancing um, their home life, whether they're single, whether they're married, and it goes exactly same thing for women, right? Trying to both the men and women trying to balance that their professional life and home life and attempting to balance that out, man. You could get really worn out in something like that, right? And then let's throw another portion to this, right? It's all the youth, and they say between 1 and 6 youth aged between 6 and 17 experience a mental health disorder. That is wild, right? Like that is absolutely wild. And that is a complete other topic, right? Based on what they're experiencing at home. You don't know what their home life is. Um, you don't know what they're going through with in school and with peer pressure and the friends and the environment they're intermixing with at the end of the day. And just think, well, the impact of that, right? There's so many multiple things that happen and with them functioning in their relationships with their parents, their friends, man, it's just the overall quality of life, man. That's deep, man. That's absolutely deep, right? And you got to think that despite the high prevalence of the mental health disorder, right? It's only 43% of the adults with mental illness receive treatment. Man, come on, folks. We need to work on that. We need to work on that because we're all kind of experiencing something somehow, some way, right? And then you got to sit there and think of those individuals that are just dealing with a mental health disorder that also are involved or experiencing substance use disorder, right? I could speak on my behalf of people that I've had contact with during my time through public service and seeing how they were affected and you listen to their stories and how that all snowballed and they just haven't been able to kind of get themselves out of that situation. And I've had the opportunity to go through a peer recovery uh, course, and one of the major things that they do say is you got to know a person's pie, right? What does that mean? That means just kind of knowing their entire story from where it started. Well, let me backtrack to what happened to them in that time period, what led them to get into that side of the house of substance use, and then how it snowballed throughout. That's kind of knowing or understanding that person's pie. And here's the reality of it, whether it's on the mental health side, whether it's on the substance abuse side, the reality is that on their time when they're ready to accept that help. Now, on the mental health side of the house, the behavioral crisis, those are situations that may call for, intervening kind of quickly to try to get that person health, uh, insurance or benefits, right? To get them to a professional as quickly as possible. Same thing for those suffering from substance use, right? You want to find a way to try to get them assistance as quickly as possible. And then sit there and think about, and I apologize, I'm kind of jumping all over the place because there's just things that are popping up to my in my head. Is those individuals that are going through those crises and that lead to suicide, right? Suicide is the leading cause of death among individuals, somewhere in the age around 10 to 34, and sometimes even older, right? And that's the severity of just not treating the mental health issues, right? That now that's that's very concerning, man. Very concerning. And those statistics that I just gave kind of underscore the importance of the awareness and prevention and access to mental health resources or substance use resources. Like those, you know, that's a big problem here in America, right? And then the real question is then how do we how do we approach a person that's going through that crisis, right? And communicating with someone with mental health and behavioral crisis really requires some sensitivity and some care, right? And I'm gonna go kind of go down through a little bit of a checklist, right? So when you approach that person or you start dealing with that person, you really got to be calm. Your demeanor can influence the entire situation. So you got to remain calm, composed, and foster a sense of safety to that person. Make them feel that they're being listened to, that you really care, right? That in a sense launches us to the next level of just really actively listen or correction, listening. So you got to show them that you're listening by nodding, by maintaining eye contact, encourage them to express their feelings without interrupting them, right? It is kind of describe that as taking a soda bottle and shaking it up, right? They got so much in them and you know they they want to be able to let it explode, right? And you by interrupting them, you're going to stop them from just letting it all come out because it is those moments when you need to let that person kind of just let it all, where with all kind of emotions, just let it all out. And when you get the opportunity, you see that you could really talk to them. Just use simple language. Speak clearly. Avoid any of those jargons that we use, right? Just kind of use short, straightforward sentences to ensure that they understand you. On top of that, after you say what you got to say, again, you're going back to active listening and just validate their feelings. You got to validate their feelings. Acknowledge that their emotions without without judgment. Don't phrases like "I can see that you're really upset" can be helpful, right? Like you got to think before you speak because that could really, trigger a person. So you got to practice that, man. You got to really sit there and think of knowing how to deliver certain things because you don't want that person to shut down, right? You got to show that person that you're empathetic. Show them compassion, that you understand. And you got to let them know that it's okay to feel what they're feeling. But you also reassure them that you're there to really hear them. That they have to take that moment to have that conversation with you. And in all that, you got to make sure that you play it safe as well, right? Got to maintain a good, safe distance. Respect their personal space. That could actually help a person feel a little bit more secure and less threatened by your presence than what you're about to dive into with them. You also want to kind of avoid some of those confrontations. Stay away from escalating that entire situation. Avoid arguing with them or challenging their perception. You're not in their shoes. You gotta go, you gotta listen to them, you gotta let it all come out and be tactful on what you're about to deliver because your objective and all that is make that person feel safe. Let that person speak everything that they need to speak and suggest and tell them that you're more than willing to go ahead and take them and help them to go to that next level, right? But you gotta be patient. Gotta be patient. And that's a huge part in all this is absolutely being as patient as you can be, right? Gotta allow them the time to express themselves. You know, rushing them in any situation. All you're gonna do is basically increase their anxiety, exactly what they're feeling. And what's it gonna eventually result? It's gonna result in them shutting down or becoming agitated and push you away. And then you just lost everything that you was just working on to try to talk to them. You just lost it, you know? So you got to find a way to keep working with that person. Work with that person, be patient with them, right? And then it comes a time when, if the situation escalates or you feel unsafe, that's the moment when you really want to call like emergency services, find a way to contact a professional just to try to help, you know, help help you help them get to that level of you know making them feel safe and it's okay to talk about it and there's someone that has the opportunity to really go ahead and help them. You know, it's a pretty deep, man. Absolutely pretty deep, and takes a lot of work. You have to be patient, and man, I couldn't tell you even more that you got to show that person love. You got to, you got to be sincere. People see through that stuff. People, you know, that are going through that situation, they could see whether you're honest and sincere and trying to really talk to them, right? So it'll behoove me that, as I continue to talk about this stuff, that it would be ideal for me to go ahead and just push out some of the hotline numbers that are out there, like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, right? So the number is 1-800 273-8255. And they have 24/7 support. They have people on those lines ready to really have that conversation with you. They want to hear you. They want to if you give them the opportunity, they'll guide you, to helping you get into a better place. There's also a crisis text line. All you got to do is, text 741-741. Basically, that's hello. You can text hello, and that'll connect you directly to a trained crisis counselor. And then, I do it. I don't do it no justice, but spelling, saying it through its acronym, but I'll spell it out. It's SAMHSA, National Helpline. That number is 1-800-662-4357. And there they're going to be able to give you information on mental health and substance use services. They're going to have all the available resources in your general area, right? Um, and the hope is that, while on the line, they could walk you right through it, and or hopefully they'll have the opportunity to connect you with those people. Uh, we have lots of professionals out there, experience, right? And you know, I couldn't tell you how important it is for us. When we identify someone, you don't know what's happening behind closed door, but when the moment you get to identify someone, family members or friends that are kind of going through things, that you're compassionate enough to ask them. We're not dumb. We see them. We see signs, right? They're not their normal selves. Ask them, and don't allow them to do this one thing. Nah, I'm good. You get that response, and you know that person is not good. But you also can't pressure them. You can't push them to the extent like that they're going to shut down and or just walk away from you. Just like a couple of things that I said inside that you got to be patient with those people. And I apologize when I'm saying those people, that person going through that crisis, right? Same thing with the kids. You get to identify certain things with the kids when they're not the normal self. When they're isolating themselves. And again, kids and adults get to do this. They're you know what's their normal routine and how they carry themselves, and when that starts shifting, again, staying away from everyone, staying away from social media, staying from social events, not really responding to text messages or phone calls. Your antennas should be up, right? Your antennas should be up. And those are the moments that you follow up with that friend, with that loved one. And, and the situation could be our own children. You gotta continue to pay attention to those things, man. You know, Kids seclude themselves in their room. Um, Not too many friends. They're not going outside to hang out with friends. As some of us will probably complain with some of our kids always on uh, video games, right? Video game systems. When they start shutting down, you know that they're every day they come from school or they're jumping on that system nonstop, whether at home, whether through their phone, whether through their tablet. When they're not doing that, man, those are red flags. Pay attention. Pay attention to that. So, look, folks, I hope I kind of shedded a little bit extra light on some of the mental health subject that we did on episode one. Um, Again, I just kind of felt like I needed to jump back on again to have some of that conversation. Yeah, I'm not perfect in some of my delivery, and I apologize on that, but here's the reality of it. I just when you do deep dives in this stuff, and you want to really learn that, and you really want to be prepared for a situation, man, you got to do your homework, and you got to know how to approach a person. You need to know how to speak to a person, and protect that person and protect yourself. That's key. Is those moments when we're ignorant and we don't see those signs, man. We have to pick up on that and do better and do better. We can't allow our kids to again seclude themselves, feel like they're sleeping all day and not being interactive and doing things. I mean, there could be other potential reasons after that, but you as parents um, need to get into that situation and dig a little deeper. Some of our kids just want to be heard, right? They just want to be heard. And sometimes we're so busy in our own little world, whether it's our profession, our, you know, things that are happening out, out of the household, that that's when we lose them. We lose them. I'll share this with you guys. With so many years of public service that I had, and I was just in this specialized unit, running and gunning, doing things, and my family suffered an event, and I think I walk with that every day. I truly, really think I walk with that every day. I had an older son, great wrestler through high school, and I'll give you a little background. We, you know, at least for me, and I'm sure some people could sit there and relate a little bit. You, as you progress in life, you want to get your children away from certain environments. Obviously, I wanted to do that. Sold the house that I was in, eventually moved forward into to another town. Got a house built, beautiful. Um, and you go with the notion that you're keeping your kids away from situations that could truly harm them, right? And fast forward, you know, I should have been picking up on signs during my time period, and I didn't because I was, uh, again, too involved. And I don't want to use that as an excuse, man. I'm gonna say it was my ignorance, because I'm gonna sit there and that's not gonna happen under my watch. Oh, it did. It absolutely did. And to move forward on things, he got himself in trouble with the law. Try to help him out with that situation. Um, try to get him assistance. Uh, I really didn't do a very good job with that, and I walk with that every day. And as time goes, he eventually uh, passed based on substance abuse, and that triggered something in me. Through my public service, I had the opportunity for somewhere in the ballpark between 4 to 5 years to be a program manager for a correction program coordinator for a program um, that would provide resources, peer recovery specialists, agencies that would be on site um, to fast track individuals that were being brought in based on the situation and just fast track to that peer recovery specialist to try to help them out and get them either into some inpatient services or outpatient services and help them. And I really want to say that we have been successful, and the program still continues to this day. Um, but I'm going to tell you something. My story is I don't want you to feel sorry for me. What I want you to do is um, get up and protect your home, protect your children, pay attention to these signs, and try to get them help as quickly as possible. Again, it happened under my watch. Never thought that it would happen, and that's just fueled me because I've seen of all kind of ages, young and old, suffering from substance use disorder, and breaks my heart all the time. And I tell you every time I have contact with a person and get to know their pie, the first thing that pops into my head is my oldest, and in my mind is if I'm going to do everything possible to help this person to get them help, and you know what, you see life through a different lens, and it's a shame that it's gotten to that point. But I'll bring this full circle, people. Appreciate your time. Again, I just want to reiterate there is help out there. That help starts with you. And that help, it's you knowing the people that you're around with day in and day out. And or it could just be a person that you just randomly bump into. I just saw something on the news. Bon Jovi and his wife, they were out there filming, and I forget what state that was. They were filming a video, and they're filming off a bridge area, and there's actually a lady holding on to the other side of the railing of the bridge, looking like she's ready to jump. And Bon Jovi and his wife went over and just started talking to her. And they didn't want anybody else around them, and got to talk to this lady until they got her back to the other side. And he sat there and they talked, and they if you guys got to see some of the news, he was sitting there. They were all hugging. And sometimes some of us, that's what we need, man. We need that outlet to talk about it and just be hugged and be told that it's going to be okay. And a stand-up guy, Bon Jovi and his wife, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want no interviews out of respect of that person, man. And listen, that's a straight up guy. It's not about him. It wasn't about his video shoot. It wasn't about the music. It was about that person. And we need more people like that. We absolutely need more people like that. And we could be that. We could absolutely be that. So, folks, once again, thank you. This is just a little second part to the mental health section that we did on episode 1. I just wanted to kind of follow up with it a little bit and tell you, man, there's always someone that needs that help. And the important part is that we need to be prepared for it. And the hope is that we could deliver when that time comes. Thank you. And folks, get ready for another upcoming episode soon. That should be rolling out. And I hope you enjoyed today's little drop from, my deep dive. And hopefully you guys could do the same thing later on. Hope to chat to you or with you. And as every show I like to say, there's going to be more real talk, one sip at a time. Peace.
On behalf of your host, Los, thank you for joining us this week on Sip and Say It. Without you, the village, and the participation on Sip and Say It, the universe will never know what's on your mind. Subscribe to Sip and Say It on media platforms like Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, and our very own Facebook page at Sip and Say It. Email us with your thoughts about the episode or topics you'd like to hear to be discussed at sipandsayitpodcast@gmail.com. Tune in next for our next episode. We can sip and say it together.